Hey you guys, so we are in week 5 and we are still talking about process analysis. And I hope that the process analysis essay seems easy for you, or that oh, this isn't going to be hard at all. I feel like most of my students think that when it comes to this particular essay, and what starts to get them is really when they start breaking down the process of something. It's a lot harder than it seems. You may or may not remember, but last week I mentioned you are not going to have essay topics in which you already know the process for something. I want to see if you can write about something that there isn't already an established process for, and that you actually have to come up with the entire thing. And that I think is a little bit more difficult. So you will be writing a directional process. You will not be writing an informational process. And remember what that means. You're going to be giving step-by-step instructions so that your audience, your reader, can take the directions that you give them and they can duplicate them themselves. Again, you're going to have to come up with a process. So the prompts that I'm going to show you in just a minute, there is no known process for them already. And that has to be 100% on you. This is where you can get creative, you can get funny, you can get a little sarcastic if you want in your writing. I think this essay can be fun to write if you like to approach it in that way. The hard part, again, I think, is just deciding what those steps are in each process. I personally would spend some time after I think about the prompt that I want to use. I would start brainstorming. What are those steps? And what are those examples, and how familiar are you with your topic or your process? For instance, I had a student a couple semesters ago. He wanted to write about how to fail a job, but he had never worked a job before. And because he had never worked a job before, he didn't really know what was entailed, and he didn't know sort of all the ins and outs of how you could actually get fired. And so that was just a process that he was too unfamiliar with, and I suggested to him that he should write about something else. So I would say the same is true for all of you. Choose one that feels maybe familiar to you, or that you could actually bring in your own experiences or experiences that you're familiar with. The final full version of this essay is only 2.5 pages minimum, so it's the same as the description essay. Remember that minimum means that it has to hit the halfway mark on the 3rd page. If it's any shorter than that, you're going to end up with a D or an F automatically. So make sure when you are thinking about these steps that you probably don't want to come up with just 1 or 2 steps in your process. You probably want to have 3 or 4 steps. And that way, when you are writing, you can be sure to develop each one of those steps into a body paragraph with a lot of examples, and so you're going to easily hit that 2.5 page mark. Remember, we're only working on the outline this week, but I do think the week feels really full to me when I was looking at your list of to-do things. So here is going to be my suggestion to you all. Chip away at this stuff a little bit every single day. It's really easy to get overwhelmed if you leave things until the last minute. That said, I'm coming to you. I'm supposed to be on a vacation this weekend, and I can't because my workload is heavy just like yours. And so I brought my stuff to obviously record this lecture, and I have my books and my papers to grade, and whenever I find a moment, I just try to sit down and chip away at things so that it doesn't get overwhelming. So I'm going to make the same suggestion for you all. And a long time ago when I was young and in school and in your position, student at Chaffey College, I would do the same thing. I would just bring my books everywhere, and when I found myself early to work, I would sit in my car for 20 minutes and I would try to get in a few pages of reading. Or when I had an unexpected break between classes, I might go find somewhere quiet and start writing notes, taking notes and stuff like that. So I make those suggestions to you all. So all right, so your process analysis essay, you're going to choose one of the following prompts to write your outline for. And remember that your outline is a version of what turns into your rough draft, and then your rough draft becomes your final draft. So essentially, I'm asking you to pick a topic for your final essay. Again, I would choose something that jumps out at you that you feel like, oh, I know a lot about that. The first topic here is how to immigrate to America. Many of you actually in this particular class, it's really kind of exciting, have done this process before, so you're really familiar. In fact, if I have a chance next week, I'm going to show you an essay that came from my student last semester, and she immigrated from Indonesia, and she had a really harrowing experience, but also she thought she was really well prepared until she got here, but she had some really clear steps about how one can do this. So that's the first choice. 2 is how to achieve the American dream. You're going to see on your essay prompts, which is on a module in Canvas, but I wrote that the first part to understanding this prompt is what actually defines the American dream. This is an idea that we come across several times in the novel that we're reading, the Book of Unknown Americans, and I think this is something we come across just socially and culturally, and we talk about all the time. What does it mean to sort of achieve the dream? Does that mean home ownership? Does that mean living with freedom? Does that mean, living in harmony with others? What does that actually mean? And again, I realize that this seems like a big, broad topic, but I had a student just last semester write a really wonderful essay, and she decided to take the sarcastic route to this, where she decided to write almost like a comedy essay, where the American dream is this ridiculous thing that everyone thinks that they're going to achieve superstar or pop star status. And so that was kind of a funny way to approach that particular prompt, but it worked really well because she thought about, well, what are those steps? And not realistic steps. If she was writing a comedy essay, she's going to make them sort of ridiculous steps, right? Prompt 3 is how to fail in a relationship. So you have the choice here. You can do romantic a relationship or a friendship. And I'm asking you how to fail because, again, there's not a process to this. This is something you would have to create, or something maybe based on friendships or relationships that you've had in the past that you would have to consider, like, well, how would you actually get rid of someone if you didn't want them anymore? Or like, why would you fail in a friendship? Again, sometimes these can be really funny essays. Sometimes I've had students in the past do, like, how to break up with a guy in 10 days kind of a essay, if you're familiar with that movie reference. The fourth prompt here is how to get fired from a job. So again, it's not how to get hired, right? There's actually a real process to getting hired. This is how to get fired. So, and you can make this as specific or as general as you want it to be. A student last semester wrote on how to get fired from Tilly's, and I thought that was funny because every company or independent business has their own sort of rules of what to do and what not to do. And so this particular student thought that she would incorporate the things that she's not supposed to do at her real job into this essay. So it made for a really good, funny essay. So one of the things that you're going to have to read this week is a student essay in your textbook, and it's called An Experiment in Spending Less. You're actually going to be writing on this for your discussion board as well. So you'll want to take a few moments to really digest the essay. And what I like about your book and this particular essay is the way in which your book, if you actually want to pause this video and go get your book, go do that. And if you open up to page 224, you'll see that they've actually kind of diagrammed the essay, and in the margins, there's this blue writing, and the blue writing sort of tells us what the function of each paragraph is. And what I really like about that is that it can help you in taking notes. And so one strategy that I want you to try to do this week, and this is a strategy that oftentimes I show students and they continue to do this. I think it's really great when you have to read essays, right? And I don't mean your peers' essays. I mean, when you're assigned textbook essays, it becomes a really great way to kind of catalog them, especially because this week you guys are going to be working on your own outlines. And what better way to think about how to write your own outline than practicing sort of a reverse outline when you already have all the information in front of you. So here you will see on the left side of your screen that I actually wrote down the very first paragraph word for word from page 224 of this student essay. So if I was actually reading this essay, right, I would not write down word for word everything that's in that first paragraph. What I would do is try to figure out several things. One, what is the most important information that's coming at me from this paragraph? And two, what is the function of that information, especially in the process essay? Is it telling me to do something? Is it giving me an example? Is this a tip or a trick or a warning, right? So I would spend my time, again, maybe trying this reverse outline. So here you'll see if I was going to actually try this, I would do Roman numerals. I would write down the title because certainly in my notebook I would want to make sure that I know what the title of that essay is. If I had an author name, I would probably write the author name. I definitely would probably write the page number, which I didn't do here, but I would definitely write the page number down. So for Roman numeral 2, you can see that I wrote introduction. And again, I think it's important that we recognize what the function of paragraphs do. Again, once you start to see structure as you read these essays, it becomes a lot easier sometimes to digest them. So here, after I'm pretending I've already read this because I have. But here what we have on the left side of your screen is a lead-in, and it's a general experience. In fact, your book almost tells you that kind of word for word. It says, introduction. The author starts with an appeal to the common experience. And so that's basically what I'm saying. It's kind of a general experience, although our author does give some really specific and concrete examples. She tells us about buying a cheap umbrella on a rainy day or granola bar one afternoon. So I've just kind of written that down, right? Lead-in is a general experience with specific and concrete examples of how we spend money here and there, right? So that's not even a full or a complete sentence. Again, I'm just kind of jotting down major ideas. Now your outline will look a little different. Your outline will be like the description outline where I actually want you to write out the full introduction on your outline. Again, what I'm showing you here is how to take notes when you already have a full essay, and I really wouldn't want you to rewrite the whole intro. That doesn't necessarily serve a purpose. But just jotting down the major points here does help. And you can see I started Roman numeral 3, right? So if I'm going to look at paragraph 2 on page 224, right? I know that this is a second intro or introduction continued because that's what it says in the margins already. And then I might read that paragraph and decide what is the most important or valuable information that I should remember there. Again, I can't stress to you what a great technique this is for taking notes, especially because let's say it's Sunday, right? And you're watching this video right now and you decide, you know what, I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to try to write in a reverse outline while I'm reading this essay. And then you get busy on Monday, you have class on Tuesday, you go to work on Wednesday, and then you get home on Wednesday night and you realize, oh my gosh, I have to take that quiz. Well, it's really hard to recall all that because so much time has passed, right? Even if you are pretty good at remembering things, I read all the time, y'all, and it's really hard sometimes for my brain to just remember certain details. Well, I wouldn't necessarily have to reread this whole thing before I take the quiz. I could just pull out my notes and just look right at that outline, and it's going to give me all that really valuable information at a quick glance. So, same thing with the Book of Unknown Americans. You can apply this reverse outline technique to the novel as well. And it's probably less of an outline and more of just a main points, right? And again, if it feels too structured for you to do Roman numerals, just write down, sort of give yourself a little bullet point and just make those major points. What happened in this paragraph? What happened here? What happened there? Again, don't worry about getting all the small details down. You're trying to get the major points down. So again, just so by the time you're at the very end of this book, right, you can remember, because you can just flip to your notebook and be like, oh yeah, I do remember that happened here. And it becomes really helpful too, y'all, because your third essay, you're going to have to write about this book. So you're going to want to have taken really good notes on the book and be able to sort of flip back through those notes in order to pull out information to write about, okay? So I'm just using an example here, so if you want to pause this video and run and go get your book, I am on page 45, actually 44, and this is the quiNto chapter. And again, on the left side of my screen here, I actually wrote down the first two paragraphs, although this one's not finished here, but the first two paragraphs, essentially, of the quiNto chapter. And as I'm reading that, again, I would not write this down, but what I would do is just write down the major points here. So quiNto, right, actually, and I would have to change 45 to page 44 because that's the wrong page number. Major point from paragraph 1 is that he came from Nicaragua and has been in the US for 8 years. Super important information. It helps us know who he is and also how long he's been here. In that, especially as he interacts with other families that are in the apartments, especially the Riveras who are new, right? Is he a person we can trust who who knows the ins and outs of the U.S., and what kind of experience does he bring with him? Certainly where we come from informs who we are. And so again, that's an important part. For my third little point here, right, I would write down that he studied to be a priest because he initially thought that's what God had wanted. But then Benny hears God tell him, no, he's not supposed to be a priest. So again, I'm just briefly putting into words what those paragraphs told me. And if you don't want to write that into a complete sentence, you don't have to. These are notes for yourself. So do whatever kind of jotting down helps your brain remember how to capture that information. If I could be real with you for a second, I will also tell you that taking notes is the best way to be a really good student. And I don't just mean like good as in, morally good or something like that. What I mean is if you want to complete your courses and do well and be successful in them, the most successful students are taking notes. If you've ever had trouble reading and remembering things, this is going to help you. Most people can't retain information that they read for very long. It actually, in our brains, that information that we read goes into sort of a temporary file. And so as time passes, you end up forgetting it. And however, when you write something down, that actually stays longer in your memory than just having read it. So again, if you have not been convinced already, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, is to convince you to take notes. And again, these don't have to be the best notes you've ever taken. I'm not going to see them, certainly, but find a system that works for you. Okay, the next thing I just want to talk about briefly is all your to-dos for the week. So again, we will be working on the process analysis, reading the Book of Unknown Americans. I have a feeling a lot of you are liking this book. I know I really enjoy this book a lot. The characters to me just feel like people I know and love and respect, and so that part for me is really fun to watch these characters come alive as we read them. So you have a little bit of reading, that student essays in your textbook. You have some reading to do in the Book of Unknown Americans. So for those of you that are slow readers out there, again, you'll want to chip away at that just a little bit at a time. The quiNto chapter is only 3 1/3 pages. So that's like a small chapter. So again, if you know you have 10 minutes between classes or 15 or 20 minutes between classes, you can probably get just a little chapter done. And that's what I find is the most helpful sometimes, is just, again, chipping away at those things. I want you to read through those 4 prompts, even though I just spoke about them, just because it might give you a little bit more information, and then decide on which prompt to write. Again, I would definitely do a brainstorm. See if you can get enough information on the page in order for you to start pulling that information from the brainstorm into your actual outline. You do have a quiz by Wednesday. You have a discussion board by Thursday. This week, your next Language Success Center stamp or activity is due. So you have until Friday before 4 o'clock to get it done. So here's what I would say. Please, please, please try to get this done sooner than later. I think 2 of you in the class actually already have done your second stamp, so kiss your brains on that. But the sooner you turn it in, the better, because last time what happened, and that the first deadline came up on us really quickly, but some of you turned in your activities on the cow, right, the online version, and they got kicked back, and there wasn't time for you to fix them and then get them to the center, and so you got no credit. Again, this is something that the Language Success Center sets up. You get points for my class because you have to do the supplemental hours in conjunction with this class, but you have to complete those activities according to their guidelines. So make sure you get it in on time in case they return it to you and tell you, hey, you forgot to fill something out or this isn't complete. You'll have time to complete that and get that 20 points, okay? So make sure you get that done before Friday. You do have to respond to 2 classmates by Saturday. I do feel like the class is getting smaller and smaller, so hopefully you're getting to know a lot of people here. I apologize for not doing a live chat last week. I just ran into a bunch of different series of crazy things, but I will try to do one this week, and I hope more of you show up. It really becomes fun when there's a lot of us and we can talk about things like what Mayor saw when he saw Maribel at the dollar store, or what Garrett Miller is doing and who he is and why is he so threatening. It becomes a lot more engaging when we can go back and forth and talk about that. Remember, chatting again isn't live video, it's just our live typing. And so I will send out an announcement by Monday and let you know when that day is going to be. So if you have any questions, excuse me, I forgot the last thing on here is your process analysis outline. So you do have a formal outline that's due this week, and it's due by Saturday night. So make sure you get that done as well. Again, spend time on that. Don't just try to, half-ass it and put it together right before it's due, because that ends up showing, and then you don't get all the points or any points that you should. This is a class that has lots of little points attached to it, so you got to make sure you're getting everything possible. So if you have any questions or trouble, make sure you email me. Other than that, y'all, I will see you hopefully on the discussion board in the live chat. Bye.